Coming up on the program, it's time that we're going to plant some sweet corn in our backyard garden. And we're going to try a method called the no-dig potato method. It's an experimental process for us. Follow along. All that and more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is sponsored in part by, for all your non-GMO, heirloom, organic, vegetable, flowers, and herb seeds, visit dollarseed.com. Sioux Growing Supply, located in Wausau, Wisconsin, focusing on certified leaf compost, an excellent amendment for poor soil. With their new garden blend, improving soil structure in clay and sandy soil, great for creating new garden beds. Also available from Sioux's, pre-filled trays and pots with professional potting soil mix or organic rice hull-based potting soil mix. Bag and bulk of certified leaf compost also available. Visit SiouxGrowingSupply.com. Don't poison your soil with municipal water. Attach a body, mind, and soil hose and filter. Free shipping exclusively through the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Just click on the body, mind, and soil icon. Authentic Haven brand soil conditioner for the home gardener. Easy to brew, 100% organic. Visit ManureTea.com. Rain Reserve. Reserving your rain, preserving our future. Rain Reserve, manufacturing of rainwater capturing capabilities. Visit rainreserve.com and use coupon code RAIN2016 to save 10% on your total purchase. Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joy Baird. We are planting sweet corn today, and there's a couple of key elements when it comes to planting sweet corn for you to have the best success. Number one is good nutrient-dense soil. If you have poor soil, corn is not going to grow very good in your garden. Sweet corn requires a tremendous amount of nitrogen in the soil, as well as potassium and phosphate, the three elements on your fertilizer package. But also it requires a lot of other nutrients that can be built into your soil. We're going to plant our small bed here. This is about a 30 square foot bed, roughly, about 30 inches wide by about 10 foot long, somewhere in that range. So we're going to plant a Stonewell Evergreen sweet corn, heirloom variety, in this bed. Now, we've done a couple of things prior to coming into the garden today in order to ensure ourselves a better chance of having good sweet corn. Last fall, we worked in about 10 gallons, 2 5-gallon bucketfuls of used coffee grounds in the garden bed here. We also bring in as many leaves in the fall as possible and cover the beds. So we worked coffee grounds in the fall. Earlier this spring we worked coffee grounds in. In addition, we had leaves that was on top of the bed that we've now currently raked away in order to get to a point where we can plant. Now, we can add more coffee grounds. We're going to add more compost here to cover the top of the bed, and then we'll plant into that. But before we do that, we want to check soil temperature. We're at 58 degrees, 4 inches down, so that's good. You want to be at least 55 degrees at 2 inches down and 50 degrees at 6 inches down, consistent, steady, or warmer. So we're okay on that, because otherwise the seeds are just going to sit in the ground and they're going to rot and you're wasted your time. So before we put the compost down, because this corn is going to root into that compost and down into the actual native soil, I'm going to add fertilizer. I'm going to add fertilizer here based on the applicational rates of the bags that I got. I figured out what would be the requirements for 30 square feet, and I've come up with an NPK of 26, 15, 16. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Now that's an extremely high number, yes, but also this corn requires a high number. We did something very similar to the 40 square foot bed over by the garlic last year, and it worked out very, very well. So we're going to continue the pattern here that we have done in the past. So I'm just going to take and broadcast this out over the bed, getting it evenly distributed. I may have to go a couple passes, but I'd much rather do a little bit each time than pour too much in on one end and have nothing on the other end. Now, you may not have to go through this type of requirements to get sweet corn to grow in your garden, your backyard, because you may have very good soil in your garden. But with us, we have to build our soil, so we have to put fertilizer, compost, coffee grounds. If you don't have coffee grounds, you could use rotted manure as a base. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and then we'll get the compost on the bed. All right, so I got the fertilizer distributed as evenly as I could. Looks very good. We've got a nice covering there. Now I'm going to put this compost from Sioux Growing Supplies, the certified leaf compost, on top of it, and then we'll plant the corn into the compost, and then we'll put leaves on top of that. But the reason why I put the fertilizer first is we're going to put the compost on top, and then the roots can grow into this as the plant starts to grow. So we got a good base there. We've got coffee grounds in there. We've got compost in there. We're going to add more compost, and I may even, at the time that the plants get about a foot tall, I may come in and side dress it with a few more coffee grounds or a little more fertilizer, just to make sure, because we like homegrown organic heirloom sweet corn, just to make sure we get that last little umph that the plant needs in order to grow. So we're just going to dump. Oh. Okay, so I'm going to spread this out about, I'd say, an inch, maybe a half inch thick. Try to get it across the whole bed. I may need another bag. Okay, I got 2 bags, which is about 4 cubic foot of certified leaf compost from Sioux Growing Supply. Got it about an inch thick here, it looks like, throughout the whole bed. Now, with corn, unlike other vegetables, corn requires a block planting, which means block planting in the aspect of when this matures, you're going to have tassels. That's those little fuzzy things on the top of the corn plant. Those have pollen that falls from the top of the plant to the ear where the hairs are. That pollen pollinates the hairs that go into the ear. Each hair represents a kernel of corn on the cob. By planting it in a block, you have a much better chance of that pollen falling into the area where ears are, one plant to another, they pollinate each other, versus one long continuous row. You're going to have very minimal to no pollination because you guys got one plant, one row. You don't have a lot of pollination going back and forth. So keep that in mind. Block planting, whether it be 2 foot by 10 foot or a 4 by 4, something to allow the pollen to kind of work in a group and get it and grow. So with this here, I'm going to plant the rows every foot. That'll work well. Put the seeds 7 inches apart. 7 to 9 is what you want, and about an inch depth, and we should be fine. Then I'll come back and I'll put the leaves on the bed here between the rows. So I'm going to start planting. So your rows don't have to be fancy. They don't have to be exactly 12 inches on center like you're building a wall in a house. You just want to eyeball it and try to get seeds in there about an inch deep and space them about a foot apart or 30 centimeters apart. And then 7 inches spacing. You can go to 9. I know some people will go 5. 7's a kind of a safe bet in big ag. In big farming, the tractors going through the field, they'll dump the seeds between 7 and 9 inches apart based on what they're wanting to get per pound per acre. So I've got these planted here. Once we get done, I'm just going to cover them up with the rake and then dribble a little, well, I'm going to put leaves between the rows here, but I'm not going to cover the leaves, the rows with the leaves, because I want the seeds to be able to penetrate through without any issue whatsoever. So that's how easy it is to plant corn. Soil temperature, good nutrient-based soil. If not, you're going to have to bring a lot of good organic matter into the mix. Compost, rotted manure, coffee grounds, good fertilizer, organic fertilizer with a high nitrogen is what we found works very successful in our garden. All right, so we planted our peas here. We got an early batch here. Then I planted these about 4 days ago.
These were planted about a month ago, but because we had such cool and cold weather, they didn't grow very good until the weather broke. But now, one key element to growing many vine crops, at least peas for that matter, is putting a trellis up. And this can be anything from a cattle panel to what they call a hog panel, to running, you could use chicken wire or poultry netting, to just using tomato cages and sticking them strategically through the bed in order to allow the peas to grow up. Peas need structure to grow up. If they lay down on the ground, they can snap the stem or pinch the stem off to where the plant's not productive anymore. In addition, the more you get up off the ground, the better production, because air circulation, bees can pollinate it better, the sun can get to them, and we're going to run this just small little bed, 30 inches wide, almost 3 foot wide, and we're just going to run 3 fence posts, and I'm going to run, this is baling twine that you would use for the big round bales you see in the farmers' fields. We use this a lot because it's a orange. Orange may not be the most appealing color, but it's a plastic string that doesn't biodegrade, which means we can reuse it year after year after year, and you can get about 20,000 foot roll of this for about 30 bucks at your farm store. So I'm just going to run 3 strings up the fence here, and so I'm going to run 1 set of string here until I run out, just going back and forth. These fence posts here have little notches to where I can clip them in, and see, that's all I'm doing right here. This side's done, and then I'll just wrap this string around here just so I'm not cutting off and wasting 3 foot of string. Then at the end of the season, we can just unravel this, because the only thing I've tied is this bottom here, and everything else is good to go. So I'll run another string, but the key is to get your peas off the ground. We've been to pick your own farms where we've just had fields of peas on the ground, and the production was extremely, extremely poor. So peas, of all the vegetables you grow in your garden, put them up on a trellis. You're going to get much, much better production. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to a no-dig potato method. Now, you've seen on the program, we've done the traditional ground method of potatoes. Well, we have some space here, and I'm going to try something that I've seen online, and as we know, not everything online is true, but different resources have said this will work. Now, what they've used in those methods is straw. We're going to use a combination of a lot of organic material we have just around the garden. The main material right now is going to be leaves, dry leaves from last year. We cover the beds, all our beds, with a tremendous amount of shredded leaves each fall. So what we've done here, this is a bed that for the past 2 growing seasons has had butternut and spaghetti squash in. We can't do that anymore because we really don't want to go more than 2 years. So what we've done here is we've divided this bed up in half. We're going to have 4 tomato plants on this side, and we're going to have our potatoes on this side. Now, this bed has been prepped with a number of products, or organic products, over the last since fall. We removed we worked the bed, we removed the vines from the spaghetti squash. Then we came in with pears that had fell and smashed on the ground from our pear tree, and you can see some of the remnants of the pears here that are slime, that are rotting away. Then we put 5 or 6 40-gallon trash can fulls of shredded leaves on this bed last fall, and we walked away. Well, before we put the leaves, we put coffee grounds, a couple of 5-gallon buckets of coffee grounds on this bed as well. So that's a lot of organic material in this bed. So now what we're going to do here is I'm going to take 1 bag, which is about 2 cubic feet of certified leaf compost, and I'm going to cover the bed right here with it. Before I do that, I'm going to incorporate some organic fertilizer. I'm going to add some bone meal, and I'm going to add some low like a 466 organic fertilizer to the bed here before I put the compost on. So I'm going to take the compost, and it's about 16 square feet here. So I'm just going to take the compost and pour it out, and we'll level it out on the bed here, about 2 inches thick. Is kind of what I'm wanting to get to the point of. Good certified compost, leaf compost. Now I'm going to just going to level this off. And where the compost is, that is where we're going to plant the potatoes. Okay. That looks pretty. Okay. Now I'm going to take our seed potatoes, which are rose fin apple fingerlings. This is a longer variety of potato. And we're just going to plant them and nestle them in the compost just like I would if I was going in just like if I had a trench. So with these, we have sprouts on them. So I'm going to put the sprouts vertically up. So in this instance, I would plant it kind of in that angle so the sprout can go up. And I'm going to do a crisscross method here. Kind of like one triangle back and forth to kind of space them out, but try to get as much in here as possible. The ideal of this whole no-dig method is we'll cover this up with organic material and they'll begin to sprout and grow through the organic material. And at the time of harvest, we just move back the leaves and we'll also cover it with dry grass clippings as those become available in the yard and just keep mounding it up. And then once the time of harvest comes, then we just move the material back, what's left, and we should have potatoes setting very easily to harvest on top of the ground. So that's the ideal of it. How well that will work is yet to be seen, but we do have this little space that if it doesn't work as well as I have seen it work, we're not wasting a whole large area of real estate here that could be utilized for something else. So we're getting these planted. Put one at the end here. Okay. Some of them I did split, or I did divide in half because they had multiple eyes on both ends. So now I'm going to take my bone meal and my organic fertilizer, and I'm just going to try to get it around the potatoes, doing the recommended applicational rate for this. Bone meal will help. It's got a high phosphorus number, which is the center number of your fertilizer bag, and this will help stimulate good root development and flower production. And potatoes are a root product, are a root, so that's what we're looking for. And then I've got a organic 466 fertilizer here that I'm also going to work or cover here. Since we're not burying the potatoes as we would in a traditional method, I'm incorporating a lot more fertilizer than I normally would because these potatoes are going to search for nutrients since they're not actually buried in the soil. So that's what I'm doing this. So if it seems a little excessive, it may be. All right, so now what we'll do is I got some shredded paper here. It's a lot of shredded paper. I'm just going to do a fine cover of that, and then I'm going to roll this whole mound of wet leaves and dry leaves and mound it up on top of the potatoes. So we're just kind of learning as we go here. There is a lot of this stuff, so we're just going to try for the first time and see how it works. This shredded paper will biodegrade into the soil, so it's nothing too bad. We'll mix some of it in with the compost. Okay, now I will take my leaf rake, or my strong hard tine rake here, and I'm just going to cover these up. Now typically what some people will do is they will cover a grassy area with the compost and rotted manure, and then plant their potatoes with fertilizer and put the straw on top, and the straw acts as a soil covering, because you want your potatoes to be covered, because if they get green because of sun exposure, they're not going to be edible. So that's also something we'll have to be very conscious of here as these grow. we'll get grass clippings from the yard, let it dry, and then just keep layering on top and on top through the growing season. This will take, these potatoes will be about 120 to 130 days, and we'll just keep an eye on it. And this may be one of the greatest things we've ever done in the garden, or one of the worst projects we've ever attempted to try. So either way, we'll see what happens. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next time for more organic gardening and food production. I'm Joy Barrett, and this has been the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.